What's up guys, and welcome to my video. Now this is actually a video that I think will be very beneficial to a lot of people, and these people are people that either don't have a gaming computer or don't have a computer at all. This video is all about gaming and gaming on a budget. Gaming on a budget doesn't mean you have to miss out on much at all. Having a GTX 680 really doesn't make your game actually look that much better than a lower end card. In fact, a lower end system is going to be able to run absolutely everything, getting all the PC benefits without the high-end cost of a high-end graphics card. When building a computer, the most important thing is to know which corners can be cut. Because if you want to keep the cost down, there's only certain components that you can cut corners on. If you cut corners on the wrong components, then you're going to regret it later down the line, and it's going to end up costing you more money than it would do in the first place. So this is my recommendation for a rig that will be able to run any game, including Battlefield, and for most games it will even run them on high settings. And you'll get a lot of life out of it for years to come. Now the first piece of the puzzle was the case, and I've gone for a mini ITX case. The advantage to getting a mini ITX case is that it's smaller, and because it's smaller, it costs less for the manufacturers to build, and therefore you're going to get higher quality for your money. Now a truly amazing case from a price performance perspective is a Cooler Master Elite 120. It's going to have plenty of room for everything you're going to put in it, it looks nice, and it's even got USB 3. Now the mini ITX motherboard that we're going to put in this case is from Asus, and the Asus motherboard we're going to put in this computer is the P8H77-I. It's got all the bells and whistles as well as USB 3. Now the motherboard is absolutely perfect for this rig. And while we're not going to overclock this rig, if you want to overclock it later by buying a CPU cooler for it, then you can. Now as for the processor we're going to put in this rig, it's the very familiar i5-3570K. You could save a little bit of money by buying the non-K version, which means it can't be overclocked, and we're not going to overclock this rig at the moment, but it only saves you about £10 or $20, so it's worth doing if you know you're never going to overclock it, but by spending the extra couple of dollars or the extra couple of pounds, you may reap the rewards later on. But while we're not going to overclock it, the processor itself is extremely fast. It's going to be able to do absolutely everything you want it to do. It's fantastic for gaming, and it's even going to perform the same as an i7 for all your gaming purposes. So the i5 is going to pack an awful lot of punch for your machine, and it's going to make it a really powerful rig. But as I hinted earlier, we're not going to overclock this rig, and therefore we don't need a standard cooler. The Intel cooler is very quiet, and the stock cooler will cool the i5 processor no problem whilst keeping the noise down, and from this budget system you really don't need anything other than the stock cooler. Now when it comes to RAM, you can go for 4GB, but it's pushing it a bit. And because it's pushing it a bit, I think you need to go for 8GB. Now if you live in the UK, the best RAM to go for is 8GB of Kingston HyperX. But if you live in the US, there's some good deals at the moment on the G.SKILL Ripjaws, and therefore if you live in the US, go with the Ripjaws. So with the RAM and the processor, you're going to be getting a really powerful computer that will be able to do pretty much anything you can throw at it. Now the most exciting bit of the computer is of course the graphics card, and the best value graphics card out there by a mile is the 1GB version of the Radeon 7850. Costing around £120 or $160, you're getting a lot of frames per second for your money, and it's therefore the best card to put in this budget system. As I said earlier, you're going to be able to crank most of the settings up to high anyway for most games, and this card is going to be able to do that, it's going to do it well, and it's pretty cheap as well, so you're getting a really good value card. Now because this is an ITX system and we haven't got anything too stressful in there, we only need a 500 watt power supply, so I've gone for a Corsair CX500 series. Haven't gone for the modular version, as because it's an ITX case, you don't want a modular power supply because they're taller and they might not fit in your case. Now the one thing about this rig that I'm not so sure on is the lack of an SSD, and that's because there isn't an SSD in this rig. I've just gone for a 1TB Western Digital green hard drive. But this is the one area of the rig I'd strongly suggest you upgrade if you can. I would say you need to get an SSD. You can get a SanDisk 60GB and use that as your boot drive. It's not the end of the world if you don't get an SSD, but if you can stretch to it, I would advise getting an SSD. But for this rig, there's no SSD in it at all. Once it's booted in the OS, you'll still be able to play all your games. All your games are going to be running off the hard drive anyway. But if you want that quicker boot times, and if you want to put a couple extra programs that will run really quick on an SSD, then you should be getting an SSD. And of course the last thing is the operating system, and as you will guess, it's Windows 8 64-bit. The boot times are really quick, and while the UI won't suit everybody, there are quite a lot of advanced tools that are just a lot nicer in Windows 8 that you'll miss if you went back to Windows 7. So that is the rig complete. We've gone really nice and budget. We've cut all the corners we can without cutting any extra corners. I definitely wouldn't recommend going with an i3 processor. The i5 really is the one to go for. Main alternative suggestions would be to get an SSD if you can. If you don't like the case, you can always get the Bit Prodigy. So the price of all these components I think is very reasonable. If I was going to build a rig for somebody, then to be honest, this is probably the one I'd suggest, especially if you're just getting into PC gaming. So the total price of this rig if you live in the UK is only £638, but if you live in the US then the total price of this rig is only $780. The prices were taken from Amazon UK and Newegg over in the US, and as usual prices will vary, so do shop around. This was only a guide price and I can nearly guarantee you'll be able to get it cheaper somewhere else. I'm very confident on the components I've chosen, but as usual there are probably a few things that you disagree with. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this rig, whether you'd buy one, whether you'd suggest it to a friend, and if you would change anything, what would you change? Show me up, challenge me, tell me I'm wrong. I'm open for discussion, I like a bit of discussion. So leave all your comments below, and I will see you next time.